Hi, welcome back to Nothing Venture, Not the Game. I'm your host with most, your GM Jared, and today I'm hanging out with Steve.
Yep.
So we are checking out this Kickstarter. It was Call to Adventure Epic Origins. This was created by Brother Wise Games. Sorry, it took us 3 takes for us to say that. It's a tongue twister. And basically what this is, it's a card game, a deck builder, as Steve will correct me in a few seconds. It's a deck builder in which you build your character's origin for a possible 5th edition conversion. And that was one of the cooler aspects of this, was that Call to Adventure is in itself a continual story.
It's a series of games.
Yeah, it's a series of games. This one was specifically created with the notion that you could build this character and play it in a 5th edition adventure.
Yeah, so once you're done playing the game, you can actually, there's a conversion PDF that's on their website, and it's also a QR code in the rule book, where you'll bring into a conversion guide of like the decisions you've made throughout the game could eventually lead to how you would play that character in a D&D 5th edition game.
Yes.
Hi, this is Future Steve here to show you how to play Call to Adventure Epic Origins. So before you start the game, what you're going to do is, now, like I said, we're not sure about the original Call to Adventure. We only played this version of it, but this version comes with little kind of booklets, little packets of cards. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, these are the missions you're going on, and they have cards that are important for you to kind of set this up before you start divvying out stuff. So Jared and I had played Chapter 1, so we're going to take up a look at what's in this packet first. And we can get rid of the other packets, because some of this stuff actually can affect your character creation. This is a Destiny card, the Chosen One. Like I said, this is an endgame scoring thing. As you can tell by the rose gold back of the card, this is a Destiny. And then there's also the Villager card, which is a background, or what they call an origin. And a village card. So you integrate these into the decks, their respective decks. So this is the brown with the kind of rose, kind of bronze back. You integrate these into their respective decks before you deal out cards for the player characters. So it's potential that the players can become these as the game during character creation for this mission. So you'd integrate these into their respective decks, and then you deal out the cards. And then there is the setup and lore card here. And then there's the little bit of lore, why you're doing what you're doing. And on the back, there's a little bit of setup that you have to do before the game. And it actually includes these 2 cards, which is the villain, the adversary card itself, which is this card right here. It's got it's double-sided. And then you have the adversary deck card that you'll integrate into the adversary deck. So you kind of do all this ahead of time. And you also get this is a generic quest card. This is the Adversary Quest. This remains the same, so there's an easy side and a hard side. I believe that the reign of it tells you in the rulebook, I think the reign of the adversary is the easier of the 2 sides. And then if you want a little bit more of a challenge, I see it says advanced adversary quest right over here. Yeah, this is the slightly more complicated, maybe not complicated, more difficult side if you want to challenge. So first thing we have to do is we have to make a character. And that's what we're going to do here. So everyone's going to grab one of these player boards, and they're all the same. So you have what the runes mean down here. You have the special runes. You have your corruption alignment track here, and that's all you need. And you have your 3 spots for all your stuff. So each player is going to be dealt one of these heritage cards here. You can tell by the acorn at the back. You have cards like, oh, come on, focus camera, damn it. You have cards like Half-Orc, the Mighty Gnome, Half-Elf, Human, and so on. You also have all these different kinds of dwarves. Yeah, dwarves, get the beard going. Elves, you can't have dwarves without elves. And they all have a little power down here. We're going to get to that in a second. But everyone is dealt one of these face down. And we're just going to randomly grab that one. Yeah, that one looks good. And then all the other cards you're going to get 2 of. So then the next card is your origin card, which is as you can tell, has this kind of it kind of came with sleeves. So you have the acorn, which is your you have the acorn, which is your heritage. You have the bronze tree, if the camera would focus. You have the bronze tree, which is your origins, which could be your artist, your scout. Like I said, they all have powers down here. Laborer, working in the mines. Pirate, yar matey. Artisan, you make stuff. Runaway, kind of like your urchin. And they, like I said, they all have little powers. Merc, you want to be a merc? Here we go. And then you're given 2 of these face down. And the third, you're going to get your class, which is this silver tree. So the other one was kind of bronze. This is a blue and silver. And these are your classes. You have, your standard D&D classes, as like you mentioned before. This is kind of like a 5th edition version of this game. You got Druid, you got Ranger. You can see all the different level ups here. Warlock, Eldritch Blast. Barbarian, I like to rage. Bard, you're gonna sing a song to people. Paladin, cleric, all the standard guys. Fighter, wizard, you have all the cool stuff. So you can deal 2 of these. And then your final one, which is your destiny, which is these gold rose, like red and gold colored ones. And these are kind of like this is your end game scoring. This is going to remain hidden for the end of the game. You have your tragic hero, or master assassin, or immortal mind, or secret sovereign. This is what Jared was. Let's see, celebrity adventurer. You're famous. High artificer. And you dealt 2 of these down, face down. So what you do as a player, you're going to go through all these cards, and let's see what we got. We are a construct. Now, this is one thing this is, like I said, the one minor complaint that Jared and I had. You only get 1 heritage. So we got, let's see here. We're a construct. We have a cool power. Our origin is either initiate or ghost. So we're going to pick one of these. And yet again, you're going to look through all these cards and kind of find what you want to play. Here we go. We're going to play a ghost monk who is an immortal mind. Right, so you're going to go through, and the rest of them get removed from the game. And once you all the players make their character class, you never need these cards again. So you're only going to use the ones you picked, and all the other cards get removed from the game. You don't need them again. Okay, so once everyone decides what they're going to be playing, and they have all these cards, you take your race card, which is that acorn we talked about before. Focus. And that kind of goes on the side of your player board here. And then it kind of goes in orders. Your origin goes in the first slot. Your class goes in the second slot, and your destiny goes in the third slot. But that's because it's the in-game scoring, and people don't know what you're going after. This stays face down until the end of the game, so people know that we're a ghost monk, a construct ghost monk, and then we have some destiny that we're going to get to when the game finishes. But for all sake, it's Immortal Mind, and there's end-game scoring right there on the bottom. So the chevron here is wisdom, and the little crown, the purple crown, is charisma. So we have swords for strength, we have little arrowheads for dexterity, we have shield-like symbols for constitution, wands for intelligence, and so on and so forth. So as you're going to play the game, you're going to increase your stats as you go. So that's kind of the character. This is like, now your character is complete. You're going to get 3 points of experience, and every player is going to get starts with 3 points of experience. It's kind of like a currency in the game. You can use it to upgrade your character class. You can use it to upgrade to do various other things throughout the game. You get all these cards out, and these are going to go into the side. Like I said, this gets integrated into the bad guy deck, the adversary deck, and these are going to stay out relatively nearby because you're going to be messing with this throughout the game. And like I said, this card here, it kind of tells you, let me see if I can get this to show. This kind of tells you the setup. So this is also a way, this is why I like this card. This not only tells you how to set it up, but it also tells you what you added so you can take it out when you're done. Because you only put this stuff in, these cards, all this stuff, when you play the first act. You know, the first campaign, the first mission. So when you need to take it out, this will give you a roadmap of what you took in, put into, so you can know what to take out. And it also gives you an outcome if you win or lose. In this case, it doesn't matter. If you win, and you don't fight him again. If you lose, you might have to fight him. You'll fight him again later on in the campaign as you play through the game. Also, each player gets one of these tokens here. This is just a tracker for your corruption track. It's got a sun and the moon. This is actually useful, which actually we didn't realize when we played the game. If you look at the tracker here, and I'll take another one. Hold on. Take a closer look at the tracker here. Depending on how high or low you go, you can gain or lose points, but also it shows you which cards you're allowed to use. So up here, you're only allowed to use hero cards, which are the lighter cards. And in the middle, you can use either ones because your alignment is basically you're neutral, kind of. And then down here, you're kind of infamous, so you can only use the anti-hero cards. And it shows you the moon. You can only use the, and then this, and you have the sun and the moon symbols. And on this token, you have, come on, focus for me. There we go. We have the moon, and then we have the sun symbols, which gives you an indication. If I'm on the sun, I can only use the good side. And then if I'm all the way down here in the moon, I can only use the dark cards. So everyone gets a little tracker for their character. And it starts on the spot with nothing in it. So if you look, we have one spot that has no symbol. If you look right here, we have one spot with no symbol, and that's where you start. And as you see, I got out. These are that rune. This is the rune mechanic that we were talking about before. Depending on your challenge and depending on your character, you're going to be rolling these runes throughout the game. So you're going to keep these handy. And the next thing is you're going to start off by preparing the different acts. So there's Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And there's clearly labeled on the back of the card. Once every person makes their character and all the decisions be made, you're going to set up this little board here. So you're going to have, as I mess up all the cards, you're going to have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Now, Act 2 and Act 3 are not available to the players in the beginning of the game, but they will eventually become available as you play the game. So once everyone makes their decisions, then you can reveal the top row. So I revealed the top row already, and it's going to show you the different kinds of cards you're going to run into. Which also, remember, you have to prepare the monster deck, the adversary deck. So remember, we had that extra card. Here it is. I already added in there. So this is a card that came in that little packet. The Dark Lord's Call. Oh, bad stuff happens. So you just kind of shuffle it in with all the other bad cards. This is when the adversary gets a little uppity and he just starts to push down the heroes and, does his mean things, his or her mean things. So we have the adversary deck nearby the adversary right here. And we have here we go. So we have the adversary who starts off on the other side. And then you have the quest card here, which kind of these two cards together kind of tell you how the adversary operates. So if we can get in here. So when the heroes roll a moon, he gets more experience, which is bad because it means he's stronger. When the heroes acquire suns, he gets weaker, which is, to be expected. And then he has a special ability. If you have at least 2 traits, which we're going to get to what that means in a minute, you're going to get a +2 to your attempt. And then we have the quest, which kind of lays out the initial setup and things you're going to need to know, especially when you roll this symbol, the bad guy, the adversary is going to play a card from that deck that we just set up. And then when you're fighting the adversary, anything you do beyond the adversary's target number, that's going to be damage that you're going to do to the experience of the bad guy. So we have these things, and there may be a reason why the monster flips throughout the game, but we'll get to that. All right, so it's the first player's turn. And we had mentioned before, we're this ghost construct monk character here, and this will be on our player board. And on your first turn, you have a choice. Okay, so I have to acquire a card. That's the whole point, is that I'm acquiring cards from here, which either give me benefits, sometimes give me symbols, as you can see here. We actually have a lot of these little, kind of laughing kind of mask symbols here. Right on the bottom here, these symbols are for endgame scoring, and this is stats. We're going to get to what those mean in a second. So this is a challenge. You can tell it is a challenge because there's the top part of the card and it has a bottom part of the card, and also has a target number right here, which is 3. The bottom part of the card is always harder, flat out. It's always a +1, no matter what the challenge is. Sometimes the challenge is in 3, sometimes it's a 4, sometimes it's a 7. So some of the later cards get much more difficult. And so this is a 3. So if I decide to resist the call of darkness, I have to beat a 3. And if I want to make a dark pact, I need a +1, so I need a 4 to beat it. When you have cards that don't have a bottom, this card right here is intimidating. This is a trait. You can just acquire this card. You can just get this card and you put it under whatever act. So on your player board, it's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So it's pretty simple. So as I have my player board here, and say I want to acquire this intimidating. Remember, it's a trait, so I could just acquire it. So all I do is I put it underneath the Act 1 card, which is my ghost card. And now what you see is, so you would, this effect would happen immediately, and then then your card covers it. So then you notice I get more symbols showing. So these symbols represent our stats. So when we're rolling against something, let's say we want to make a dark pact. Let's see. So when you want to acquire a trait, you just put it underneath your card, and traits always go on the top side. And challenges either go on the top or the bottom, depending on which side you try to do. So if I try to resist the call of darkness, and I succeeded by making my rolls, I will put this on the top, like this. If I decided to go for the more difficult side and make a dark pact with whatever unknown forces, and I succeeded, it goes on the bottom. And yet again, the relevant symbols will show up and let me know what I've gotten for doing that. So traits you can always take just for free. There's no check involved in getting a trait. And as soon as you take a card, once the end of your turn is, so let's say we took the intimidating card. It wouldn't do us much good because we don't have any strength. If you look at the bottom card, you get an experience. If you gain this card and you have at least one sword, you would gain an experience. But in this case, we don't have any swords on our character, so you would just gain this stat, which is charisma. And since we already have one charisma, it actually bolsters our current character, because now we can roll 2 when we're rolling. Then in turn, you reveal the cards again. You can also, at this point, before you pick your which card you want to attempt, you can spend XP. 1 XP you can expend. You can discard a card and then draw a new one. So say we don't like this card, we can discard it and draw a new, trying to get the cards we really like. So when we're attempting a challenge, let's say this is the first turn I went and I acquired that intimidating. So now I'm an intimidating construct ghost monk. And now I want to acquire a card. Now I was really looking at that make a dark pact or resist the call of darkness. So now we have to make a check. So if you look at the card, it tells you what check you're going to be making. So if you look at the side of the card, whether you attempt the top here or the bottom here, you look at the side of the card right here. So you see the target number is 3, so we need at least the 3 up here or 4 down here. Remember, it's +1 on the bottom. And we either are making a wisdom check, it's wisdom and charisma. So I look at my character sheet. Now remember, we acquired that intimidating before. So I look at my character sheet. I have 2 charisma and I have 1 wisdom. I'm pretty good at this challenge. So what I do is, this is what the runes are for now. So anytime you make a check, you take the 3 default runes and you roll them. But you also roll some stats if you have it and if it's part of the challenge. Okay, so the 3 default runes. So the slashes are successes. So this adds to my total value based on whatever check I'm doing. So remember, let's say we're trying to do the top part, resist the call of darkness. So we have to get a 3 at least to succeed. So these are successes. So if I roll this, I would succeed because I need a 3. On the back of 2 of these are blanks. Uh-oh, that's bad. And on the back of the third one is that special symbol. And this means that the adversary is going to mess with us and try to stop us from doing what we're doing. And we're going to draw one of those cards. But remember, I said it's also a wisdom and charisma check. Remember, right here, right where my finger is, that symbol is the wisdom symbol, and the crown symbol is the charisma symbol. So that means if I have those stats, I can try to roll those stats as well to complete the challenge. So you can roll one of the symbols here, and then you see that it's color-coded, so it's green for wisdom, but it's also on the back side of these, you can tell that the chevron is the wisdom symbol. And my character has 1 wisdom, so I'm allowed to roll 1 of these. So I add the 3 kind of default ones, and I add the charisma one, or the wisdom one. But since I took that intimidating, I have 2 charisma, so I can add 2 of the charisma tokens. Now the charisma the stats are either successes or 2 successes. And if you have all 3s, then 3 is the maximum. You can acquire more than 3, but it doesn't really help you. That's more for the character creation and conversion. But you can, on the third one, so there's a third token, and you can only pull this third token. This is the charisma token here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the wisdom token. So this is the special token. Each stat, if my camera will focus, each stat has a special third rune where it has a 2 success item on it. So this is worth 2 successes, and also has a special symbol which isn't worth any successes, but it does some special. It has some special. There are different symbols for each one. There is the dark triangle, there is the diamond, there is the white triangle. So all these have little special meanings. If I can, there we go. All these have special meanings. So you can pull this only if you have the third stat. So right now we only have 2 stats, so we can't take this one. So we can only have but if we look at our hand now, we have those 3 and 8 ones. These 3 right here. These are the default 3, and then we have these 3. So these 3 are at least going to be at least 3 successes because they have a minimum of 1 each. So we could just roll this. But let's say, we're thinking about it, and like let's say this is a really hard challenge. I mean, I can roll 3 nothings, right, and I can roll 3 successes, right. This is potential like it could happen. Let's say it's a harder challenge. Maybe I try to do the bottom where I make a dark pact. So I can potentially fail this. I can spend experience to pull these dark runes. 1 experience each, up to 3, because there's only 3 in the game. And these are also worth 1 success. But on the off chance, if I roll the moon, this is what's going to alter my corruption, my alignment, and potentially move me down the track and make me where I'm not allowed to use the hero cards anymore. These are the hero cards, and these are the anti-hero cards. They're dark and mean. But we're not going to do that because we're pretty sure we can succeed. And look at that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 successes. So you don't really get anything for going over, but you do get to acquire the card. Now remember, we tried to do the top part. We wanted the easier route. There we go. We wanted the easy route we did the resist the call of darkness. So this is our innate card. So we would slide this down, and we would take that. So now we have 2 charisma and 2 wisdom. So we're really bolstering our mental stats here. And really now we're very wise and charismatic, which may help us down the road. If you fail to succeed and you fail to acquire a card, you do get something for your trouble. You do get a point of experience, which you can use to upgrade your character. You can use it for a variety of things, some of which we've already talked about. Remember, at the end of the turn, you fill up the row, and the next player gets to pick a card. and try to acquire a card. Once a character acquires the third card underneath their origin, in this case, our ghost origin, they get to go to Act 2. So then they flip over all those cards. And they're eligible to go to Act 2 cards. Now, if you haven't gotten your third card yet, you still have to operate in Act 1 until you get your third card. Then you can move to Act 2. After Act 2, you fight the adversary. Every character will fight the adversary once they exit Act 2. And then when they go to Act 3, you fight Act 3. The boss flips over, and then you have a final battle at the end to see if you actually have achieved victory. And as things get down from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3, as you can see, we went from difficulty 3s to, this is an Act 2 card, difficulty 5s, and there's some rewards up here, some symbols, some points down here. So depending on which side you want, remember, the top part is always easier because this is a 5, but down here, becoming a vampire, that's a 6. That you need more to accomplish that. And this one is strength and intelligence to try to defeat it. So we might need to bolster our strength and intelligence before we go after this card. Or maybe there's another character that's really focusing strength and intelligence. And then there's a variety of difficulties, but this is an Act 3 card, and it's 6. Remember, and then down here is 7. So defeating a dragon is harder than commanding the dragon. And then there's that charisma stats and strength. So we're pretty built for this challenge because we're high in charisma at this point. So we might be able to take on this challenge. And remember, every time you're doing a challenge and you roll this symbol, oh, come on, there we go, the up and down arrow symbol. You're going to draw one of these cards here, and this is going to mess with you. So this is when the boss, if they go, oh, cursed treasure, reveal this card, and as a hero attempts a challenge, they may gain a moon to draw a card. So moon is a corruption. So they move down on the corruption track, but they gain either a hero or an anti-hero card. So it doesn't really hurt them. It's a maze. You can choose not to do it, but you just don't get any benefit from it. But then we have, it's a wandering monster. It's a gelatinous cube. Reveal this as a hero attempts a challenge. It has a +1. So it's just 1 point more difficult. And we'll take a look at the one that we added for this particular villain. Each villain probably is going to have a card that they get to add. The Dark Lord's Call. Reveal this as a hero attempts a challenge. Add a dark rune to the attempt. So they get one of these for free. One of these runes for free, but they have to roll it, which means they can roll that moon, which is bad news. Because remember, when the bad guy, when any player rolls that moon symbol, this guy's going to heal some hit points. He's going to get some more experience back, and that makes him harder to defeat. Hence, it's harder to win the game at the end. And like in our game, if you ever run out of these cards, you just reshuffle and keep dealing them out. The skull cards, they keep coming. When you play one of these cards, either the hero or the anti-hero, these are the anti-hero cards here. Anytime you play one of these cards, you're going to keep it nearby your player board because they're all worth points at the end of the game. As you see, they have the dark crystal symbol here. There's this black crystal symbol here. That's points at the end of the game. And I think they're all worth 1. Oh, critical hit. So that's worth 1 point. So if I play this card, I keep it near my board just to remind me that I'm going to get points for it at the end of the game. And then the hero cards have the clear crystals, the white crystals. As you see here, our Arcane Insight. Magic Wand is worth 1 point. Channel Divinity, 1 point. And they all do a variety of different things. Sometimes you can use these on your allies. You can use this on yourself. You see, sometimes it depends on what kind of path it is. So you can see the symbols on the bottom of some cards. Let's see. Protection from evil. So like I said, some of these you can play it, and it'll kind of let you know when you can play it, when it's a challenge. So that's when someone's rolling against a challenge. When you're acquiring a trait, it just tells you when you gain a moon. A sun symbol. They can either gain 2 sun symbols or they can gain an XP as well. So this is a good one. We were looking for this the entire game last time. And this is basically how you play the game. At the end of the game, you're going to add up your points. The game includes this handy little flip book of score sheets for all the different players. And you see, you add up all your white crystals, you add up all your black crystals, you add how much XP you have, which includes the XP that's on your class. Because of your class, you can spend XP to become more powerful. The story icons. The story icons are set collection. If you collect a certain number of each icon, then you're going to get points for it. So let's take an example. This card here, right? That's crown symbol. If you have 2 or more crown symbols, you're going to get a certain number of points. And there's, I think, 5 or 6 different symbols throughout the game where you can collect and earn points at the end of the game. But this one's also worth 3 crystals. That's if you took the bottom part. The top part, you only get 2 points here, but you get a anti-hero card. You get an anti-hero card, and you also get the in the charisma, or you can get down here strength. And you also the skull, which is your negative points, if you have any, which is entirely possible. And then you total up, and then that's how many people you win. So down here it shows you the breakdown. If you have 2 of one symbol, you get 2 points. If you have 3 of one symbol, you get 4 points. And you have 4 or more, you get 8 points. And then, like I said, there's a variety of symbols throughout the game. I think there's 5 or 6 symbols. And that is how you play Call to Adventure.
And then you don't get spells or anything like that because it is a deck builder.
It's like a tableau builder. You're not actually building a deck of cards to cycle through, but you are selecting cards. Well, kind of at the beginning of the video, you see that as the game is laid out, there is going to be the game kind of works in 3 acts.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go, you're going to be collecting cards through either challenges based on your character stats or being able to select traits for your character, whether that's intimidating or honorable or what.
Mm-hmm.
There's a variety of different cards. So traits, you can just easily just select them, and some challenges you have to go on the quest and try to complete it.
Yeah. We did this, and it took us, we opened the box, sleeved all the cards, and ate lunch while we were doing this. And it took us about an hour to do all that. And even we read the rules. This is a very simple game. If you've ever played any kind of tableau-like game or deck builder game, like what's the DC one you like?
Oh, Legendary.
Legend, yeah.
Is that the Marvel one?
That might be the Marvel. There's a DC and the Marvel one. Yeah.
So those are traditional deck builders where you're acquiring cards into a deck, drawing cards, and then playing cards in a specific order. So you're going to have a lot more cards in your deck. And this one, eventually you kind of land out to, you will collect 9 cards throughout the game at most.
Yeah.
And unless someone ends the game early, you'll have less than 9 cards collected throughout the game. So you start with your race, you have your class, you have your background, and you have a hidden card, which kind of tells you like end game score and which kind of keep hidden, which is kind of like almost like your career.
Yeah.
And then you'll have one hidden card, and it's called a Destiny, which is kind of like the one I had was Master Assassin. So
yeah, mine was like, it was something ridiculous. It was like the
chosen one.
It was like it was like the Supreme or something
or like,
weird.
Like the fated
Sovereign.
Sovereign. It's like,
that's what it was.
So that will kind of like be, it's hidden because so this is a cooperative competitive game. So you can technically play this game, and I even tell you can technically play this game fully cooperative, but it's more akin to where it's cooperative because you can technically all lose if you don't complete the final mission.
We did.
Yes, we did. We died horribly.
Lost bad.
But if you succeed, there will be one person who succeeds the most.
Yeah.
Which is, I was a little bummed out about that because I love fully cooperative games, and D&D being a cooperative experience, it kind of lends itself. But yet again, this wasn't initially designed as a 5th edition thing because Call to Adventure was already a game that existed before this version. And this version incorporated the 5th edition aspect into it.
Yes. That was something I would like to touch on as we continue on this. But yeah, the cooperative aspect was something weird.
Yeah, it's kind of you had to work together enough.
Yeah.
And there's some reasons why you would help another person out because you get some benefit. But then there are other times where I'm like, F you! And like, it's just like,
yeah, it didn't
give me your stuff.
It didn't make sense because we sat down with the mindset of this is a 5th edition kind of game. Yeah. And where we thought it would be cooperative. And then there were like moments where his character was built on, there is an alignment system kind of.
Yes.
And well, we could jump into that now.
We can touch on that.
Yeah. So basically the way, when you look at the beginning of this video, there's kind of like an explanation on how to play this game, very quick and dirty. And you have these runes. And it's a cool concept versus like
versus dice, or like pulling like building a deck, or pulling stuff out of a bag. This one was like literally you flip runes or roll. There's two-sided, so you actually roll the runes.
You shake them, you just throw them on the table. It was cool. There was a lot of click-clackety sounds, which was fun. I mean, who doesn't like hearing that? Like, that's why you roll dice, right? Like, theoretically, you could play a D&D with just a random
deck of cards.
Yeah. But, so you throw these runes, and the runes are akin to your, like, there's stats. So there's strength, there's dex, there's con, there's wisdom, there's int, and charisma. And as you collect cards by completing different missions, you
get better stats.
So you collect more and more runes. Then as we were playing, we kept seeing new symbols, and we were like, what's this symbol? Oh, we have to collect 4 or 5 of them, and you get bonuses at the end of the game.
Yeah, but there's a set collection aspect to it where you can focus on collecting the stuff that makes you more powerful and the things you want to be more powerful in. But there's also a thing where, like, if you collect certain emblems, you're going to get bonus points at the end of the game.
Yeah, which was the end of the game situation, and we negated that because we were playing cooperatively. In our mindsets, we were sitting there playing cooperatively, even though we technically were both villainous characters.
Kinda. No, you were like
at the end. I went full villain.
No, you were still able to play both cards.
Well, yeah, because I didn't. Well,
yeah.
So again, we're now going to move on to the alignment tracker, and on the alignment tracker, basically you have on the side of your tableau,
your board. You get a
board. You'll see these symbols, and they look like suns and moons, right? So moons are negative, and the suns are positive.
I think they're called a corruption or infamy or something like that.
Yeah. So as you do, there are 2 sets of cards you could get, like heroic cards and non-heroic.
Hero cards and anti-hero
cards. So heroic cards help you, and anti-heroic cards
they still
sometimes help, but sometimes make things a little jerkier.
Yeah, so either like there's a little bit of a take that element to the anti-hero cards sometimes, where it's like either I can get a bonus, but then the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy of the game gets stronger, or I can like help out somebody else, but then I'm gonna get a benefit. And then the other side, the hero cards are more clearly beneficial for either everyone, or you can target somebody, or you can target yourself. Obviously there's clear, like the anti-hero cards are more of the selfishness, and then the hero cards are more like the selfless acts, which is it's kind of a cool concept. And then the way my character was built, I kind of went dark really quickly. Didn't realize that there's negative points that have come from that.
But the negative points only work if you're counting points, and we sat there and knew we weren't counting points. So it harkens back to Call to Adventure, which was built around a separate system, a more competitive system, while this was built around the 5th edition notion of playing together. So there was a little disconnect on that aspect. As you play through the game, it's fairly easy, and it's easy to set up and it's easy to play. This isn't something that will take you hours to learn or hours to master. It's very simple. The whole rule book itself is 23 pages. So it's, again, not an extensive series.
This isn't a novel. I mean, some games can be like, ugh, like this is the rule book, So this one it's pretty simple and pretty quick to understand what we have to do and how to set it up.
So I guess we now can give it like a positive, like talk about what we like and what we disliked about the thing. Steve, what are some of the Steve's more of the board gamer and I'm more of the tabletop gamer. So I'm going to give it to the board gamer first, and then I'll come at it from the lofty ideals.
Consider the fact that this is kind of touted with the 5th edition kind of attached to it, and how like a lot of the cards are kind of related to Dungeons and Dragons. That was the one issue that I had, was like the cooperative element. I walked into the game expecting a cooperative experience, and it was like, it's cooperative so long as you win. Like, it's like, you always want to like the question is, you're always vying for the fact that like I could help you, and if I don't help you enough, we could all lose. But at the end of the day, where is that cutoff? Because I want to make sure I'm getting more points at the end of the day than you. So that was a little bit of a disconnect for me. But the way the game functioned, game functioned great. The symbology is really clear to understand. It's like either you can take a card, certain types of cards, you could just take those cards and add them to your tableau, or there are certain cards where you have a choice, either the top part of the card or the bottom part of the card. The bottom part being more difficult, but sometimes you're going to get more rewards out of it. And the top part is still kind of like you have to roll your stats depending on what the cards. And the card clearly tells you what you need to roll. And if you have those stats, great. If you don't have those stats, maybe next time. I also like the fact that there was a mechanic where, say you didn't have the stats for a specific card and you really want. So each card that you have to acquire that you're rolling for, there is 2 stats that it has on the card. And then you compare that with your stats to see if you're allowed to roll those stats. So if it has strength and wisdom and I have strength and con, well, my con's not going to help me out here, but my strength is. So I can count how many symbols I have in strength and roll that many runes up to 3, I think is the max. But there is like, oh man, I have no strength or wisdom. I'm all intelligence and charisma and it's strength and con. Like, how am I going to get that card? But I really want that card. For whatever reason, I want that card. You get a flat number of runes that everyone rolls every time. And you can also pay for dark runes, which is going to lead into that corruption mechanic where if you roll the moons, you're going to go more corrupt because you're buying power, which is a cool concept, which is one of the ways you can go kind of dark, which has a effect on what kind of cards you're allowed to play. Like we mentioned those hero and anti-hero cards. At some point, if you get too righteous, you can't use anti-hero cards, and if you get too villainous or too corrupted, you can't use those hero cards. So in the end of the game, I had some dead cards in my hand that I couldn't play because I was too much of a bad guy. I was a master assassin barbarian, so I don't, it's kind of. Hey, we get a complaint to them.
So from the tabletop gamer looking at this from the perspective of coming at it as a cooperative game. Again, I think both of us came to this thinking it was cooperative and really kind of like had the rug pull out from under us, realizing like, oh man, no, this is not cooperative at the end. Yeah. Although, which was super weird because a lot of games where you're supposed to be competing against each other and also competing against a board, there is a little bit more delineation between like you are your own entity and then defeating the board is also a possibility the entity could do without the aid of the others. This was there's no way for you to beat that bad guy unless everyone can get there. So I was like, so what's the point of me rushing the end when, like, how am I going to rush points then have my allies also continue forward? Because I'm also trying to stop my allies from doing stuff.
Yeah,
but then I also need them at their best to help me defeat this. Again, you kind of play these storylines, these story cards, and there's a villain at the end, and you're like, well, I need all my friends there to help me defeat this villain, because if we all lose, we all lose.
Yeah.
Also, it was weird because you don't build your character like D&D. So you don't choose like your race. No, it was all random. It's random. It's the deck is like randomly drawn, and then you randomly get your characters from that, and it's all random, and that's cool. But if I'm trying to convert this to a character I can play, it's similarly just rolling a D20 and just randomly choosing from the book.
You do get some choices. Now I will say that I wish that because in the rules kind of tell you the basic setup, and again refer to the beginning of this video. But you do get. I wish they gave you more choices of race, because they kind of like you get dealt one race card and that's it. Like you don't have a choice in race. That I will agree with you on that. There is, I think, more than enough cards for the race cards that at least every player. This is up to 4 players, so I think there's enough race cards that every player could have technically a choice of two at minimum. And then the other cards, that there's a class cards and there's other cards. There are a few more of those, so that you are given a choice of 2. So you're given 2 races. I'm sorry, you're given 1 race, 2 classes, 2 backgrounds, and 2 destinies. And of those cards, you have to pick one of each of those. That's how you build your character. So there is some choice, but it is random. At the end of the day, it is a board game.
Yeah.
And it is just having this idea of like the D&D aesthetic on top of it, like the D&D races, the D&D classes, a lot of the cards, whether they're traits or whether they're little like challenge missions you go on. They're kind of skinned as like D&D.
Yeah, well,
and the monsters are D&D, and there's a campaign.
There's
like
a whole campaign.
Yeah, there's the different ones where actually fun enough, the first campaign, it says if you don't beat the last boss, you continue on, and he shows up later.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. So there is this campaign idea, but you're right. Like for the most part, your character generation is quite random, but I attribute that to it being a board game.
That's fine. I just didn't like it. I thought maybe either if there should have been more races, or obviously you don't have to. No one's coming to Brother Wise Games isn't coming to your house and is not going to like kick in your door if you're playing the game you want to play. If you're like, oh, I really want to play a Genasi Paladin, Master Assassin Destiny build. I don't think anyone's going to stop you from doing that. Now, also because it is random, sometimes you can get what Steve had, which was a lot of synergy in his build, and my build there was absolutely no synergy in all the cards that was given to me randomly. There was zero synergy. Now, could we have reshuffled and I could have gotten something? Yeah, but I wanted to play it as is. From that perspective, it was a little wonky. Continuing on, the story, it's one shots. It's all one shots. The story continues, so you, the player, will know the story, but the character wouldn't. There's no, what's the term?
Yeah, there's no like you don't keep your character from game to game to game. Your character doesn't get progressively more powerful. You literally draw anew again. So it's like your adventuring. The way I kind of looked at it at the end when I started realizing kind of like the whole thing is you have 3 acts, and your first act, which is under your class?
No, background.
It's background, class, destiny. So the way it works is like you start with your background, and then you acquire 3 cards on that, and then you go to Act 2, and then everything goes under your class, and then Act 3, everything goes under your destiny. So in essence, if you actually look at this is your entire character's career.
Yeah, their campaign.
Right. So this is in essence at the end of the game they retire, and then you draw a whole new character, and then it's like, okay, well they laid the groundwork for my next character to then go on another mission. So they're compiling an entire basically D&D campaign into a single game, which is cool. And it also can give you, I think the reason that the whole thing was it can convert into where you're not selecting. You can always you can do what you want.
Do what you want.
But I think the reason that it's partly randomized, partly because it's a board game, and then also partly is because that this can spark ideas oh man, I never really thought about playing an Air Genasi like rogue, sovereign, whatever it is, right? So also some of the cards you acquire, some of the traits you acquire, also they will in the conversion guide kind of help you guide your decisions, and it also can give you stats based on what kind of stats you've acquired through the game. Yet again, you don't have to follow that if you didn't get the perfect spread of stats that you wanted. You just kind of followed the game, because if the bad guy is all about strength and dex, and you have an intelligence character, you're going to want at least some strength and dex so you can even fight the bad guy, right? So you might make decisions for gameplay reasons that don't make sense for a D&D game where you have other people who aren't trying to win, they're trying to help you. So there's a little bit of that.
On that, at the end, I did do the conversion. Steve's character was fairly viable. As a barbarian
with strength and dexterity.
It was perfectly viable. My paladin was not viable.
We had an 8 strength.
I had an 8 strength, an 8 con, and an 8 wisdom. I was completely.
He had like a 20 charisma. You had a 16 charisma, and you had a 16 something else.
Intelligence. It was intelligence and charisma, because those are how my cards lined up. Again, when it came to that randomness to it, it made sense for that. And then the final boss was strength and con, and I had none of it. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way for me to fight this final boss. And that was something. So we obviously we only play 2 players, and it goes up to 4 players.
Yeah. If
there was an option, and this is my biggest pet peeve for this, you play the game for 2 players. A lot of times when you play these deck tableau type games, they will say at 2 players, remove this many cards from this and put this many cards in, and make sure these cards are there. And give you an
alternate rule to help you cycle through the deck. We kind of got stuck.
We got stuck because the final boss, as you progress through the thing, you come to find out the final boss, you have to get rid of all the hit points or experience points, whatever you want to call it. And the only way to do that is to roll higher than his stat, right? So if you want to look at it in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, his AC was like a 10. So if you roll higher than a 10, you pull that from his experience.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's random because it's rolled. But the problem was we finally got to them, because there was only myself and Steve, he had full hit points because of how the game pans out. Every time you rolled this one symbol, it looked like two triangles on top of each other.
Yeah.
He would get experience points up to his max, right? And
the way it works is that the game will show you that there's the monster card, and then there's the basically the villain card, and there's also a villain quest, and both of those things will tell you how the villain operates. And there's certain things that are rolled or collected will help the villain, and there's certain things that are rolled or collected that will hurt the villains. In this case, it was the sun symbol, which you come to find out is a very rare symbol,
super rare,
which I thought was gonna be more common, reason why I ended up with negative points, but it didn't matter because we didn't win anyway.
Yeah, and again, the sun symbol, which we did find out, because as we're fighting this bad guy, I was like, Steve, how is there, like, I was like, can we read through these rules again? And he goes, yeah, we have to find the sun symbol. So I was like, all right, look, we already are at the end. We're just kind of doing this as a review process. Let's look through these decks to see how many times the sun symbol appears. And it was very rare.
Yeah.
Super rare.
Very uncommon.
Now, with 4 players, it would probably be way more common, because there's a way to cycle the decks you're looking at.
Well, not even that, because there's a way for you to cycle the decks by spending the currency that you're collecting, but that currency is used for a number of different things. Well, on the other side, if you have 4 players, you have 2 times as many players pulling cards. So you have to remember, for each act, you're pulling 3 cards.
Yeah.
So for the most part, everyone's going to get 3 cards. Maybe the last act, maybe someone gets 1 or 2 because maybe they weren't rolling really very well. But at the end of it, most people are going to have 3 cards on their first card. Most people are going to have 3 cards on their second card. So with a 2-player game, that's only 6 cards each act with 2 players. But with 4 players, you're doubling that number.
Yeah.
So you're even via playing the game, you're pulling many more cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you're cycling through the deck much faster. We had a large number of cards we never even saw.
Yeah, like the decks were like, you get a lot of options.
They're like 24 cards for the first and second act, and then 21 cards for the third act.
Yeah.
So it's hard pressed for. At the end of the game, you had plenty of money, right? And I was still scrounging for money.
I had XP out the wazoo.
You had XP out of the wazoo, but I had cards out the. I had all 9 cards.
Yeah, and there was no way to spend XP. Obviously, we only saw a small amount of characters, but there was no way for me to spend XP to like hurt the main villain. And I was like, there's no way to beat this villain. Obviously, they could have set it up so that the first game you play, maybe they want the villain to continue forward. But I feel that with 4 players, you probably would have beaten that villain, because everyone would have had a chance to just defeat him.
Yeah, but you also, the villain does scale based on how many hit points or experience points is the term that they use, that the villain has. It's 5 per player, so they had 10. But some of the cards we played, and we did roll a lot of that symbol, so even if we did some damage, it kind of got rolled back.
Yeah.
Plus, based on how characters built, I was very capable of fighting the bad guy. I had a lot of ways, and my stats kind of lined up because the bad guys the same ways. They'll show you 2 stats, and those are the only stats you were allowed to use. Like I said, in your character, now we know in the future, you need to take a closer look at that and go, okay, well, we might need to focus on these stats a little more than the other stats
to fight this villain.
To fight this villain, but
And then also, like, you don't always see every symbol. We didn't see the crown of destiny that often on the cards to even pick up.
Yeah, which was wisdom. Yeah. Which I think it was his was. That's one of the reasons why I pulled 1 or 2 wisdom cards, is because he was wisdom and con, or wisdom and something. Wisdom and a physical stat.
Yeah.
And I again, being barbarian, and I'm getting bonuses, and each character class, I believe, for the most part, gets bonuses to certain stats if you level yourself up by spending experience points, which is another thing you have to spend experience points on, which is one of the reasons why I never had any extra money. I just got just enough just to level my character out, and then it was the end of the game. You had like, I have all the money.
Yeah, because my character was great with like cycling experience, which you can spend experience to cycle through the different decks at the different tiers. So to see cards you might want, or to be able to grab faster, or to even mess up, because again, it's a competitive game. Maybe I don't want the barbarian rogue to have all the strength stats. As to why, I don't know. this isn't so clear as to delineate between the competitiveness and the cooperativeness. I think that's my biggest pet peeve with this game.
At that point, that there is, like I said, a slight set collection aspect to it. So if I know that, or if you know that I'm like 1 point away from getting a big set, you can go, okay, well, I'm going to bury that card and get rid of it so you can't have it. So yes, it may or may not be a stat that I need. Maybe it is a stat that I need, but I'm really wanting it for the extra like 4 or 5 or 6 points that I'm going to get because I completed another set. And then like maybe I'm not worried about defeating the boss because there's maybe enough of us to defeat the boss.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, but I'm going to eke out a victory by collecting that symbol on the bottom of the card. And you go, oh no, get rid of that.
Yeah.
No winning for you.
No, none for you. No fun. So I think that's like a fair assessment of this game. It's cooperative. I would just play this solely cooperative. I personally would negate the whole point collection. We have not played the other Call to Adventures, so that is on the list. We're going to be getting those.
And there is an expansion for this,
and there is also an expansions for the Call to Adventures. This goes right. So if you have this Call to Adventure Epic Origins and you have the other Call to Adventures, you can put these together. They
yes,
work
compatible.
They are very compatible, which I like. That's a great thing because sometimes you get expansions that make the original game way harder because you're like, okay, now we have to add in this new symbol. Like now we're bringing in skulls, and the game had no skulls before, so now we have to add skulls. And I want to play the undead fiend warlock, so now we also have to bring in Cthulhu monsters. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, no other base class can fight Cthulhu monsters and get skulls. So, but this is fine. It's very compatible. So that's what I really liked about it. Steve?
I like that. I think it's a good game. It did not take us like once we got it.
No,
it does not take long to play.
You could probably burn.
I don't think that. I mean, there may be some like, oh, do I want this card? Oh, I want that card. Oh, can I even complete that card? There's a little bit of that.
Yeah,
it's going to happen in every game. But the decisions were quite clear for me. At least looking at the game, because there's a couple of things. One, your character class gives you bonuses on a certain stats. Like once you level up, like I got bonuses to con first. If I spent a little bit of XP, spend a little bit more XP, I got bonuses to strength. And if I spend a little bit more XP, I got a passive benefit, which I think is how all the classes work. So your paladin, you got I think charisma and wisdom, right?
It was charisma and wisdom. I never saw the Crown of Destiny symbol, which is what we are calling the wisdom symbol. And then at the end, it was
I can't remember your ability.
Oh, what was it? It was that's what it was. I started rolling. I started trying to roll for the triangle symbol for the villain because it gave me more cards to be able to grab for the heroes to help the heroes.
Oh, and mine kind of worked essentially. So remember we talking about they're the dark runes that you can pull. You had to spend 1 experience point to pull each one of those runes, and there's a maximum of 3. So if you're really in a tight spot and you really want to fight the boss, or you really want to complete maybe a really hard challenge, you can spend up to 3 experience points and roll these extra 3 runes, which is possibly another 3 successes you're going to get. But they also had that bad symbol on there. But my character, being, I believe it was Outcast, got 1 for free every time if I wanted it. So I didn't have to spend it for the first one. And then the Barbarian ability is every time you roll those dark ones, you just get to choose the side. So I never had to pick the bad side anymore.
Yeah.
So I basically get, if I spent the money,
additional
3 guaranteed successes every time. So yet again, it kind of had a little bit of synergy there with the dark runes or the night runes. I think it was a dark or night, whatever. But yeah, this is like any game where you having pick a couple options, like Roll for the Galaxies. It's the same problem where you can get like an awesome setup in the beginning and you just kind of run away with it. And other times you're like, man, these cards don't work together at all. So
that was my struggle.
Yeah,
I was on that bus. No,
I think it's a good. It's fast. The symbology is quite clear, and they're like I said, this is the rule book. It's tiny in comparison to other rule books of other games. Yes. It's a tiny rule book, and it makes everything quite clear. And at the end of it, like I said, and it also has the pull of at the end of it, you get basically a complete character that you could try to run in D&D if you really wanted to.
Maybe 50-50.
Well,
Check it out. It's fun. It's fun.
From
It's
a
fun.
thematic standpoint,
Yeah.
maybe not taking the stats, because maybe, like I said, the kind of game kind of tells you what stats you're going to need.
Yeah.
So maybe you're not taking, like, maybe it's the rogue with like the wisdom and strength, because that's what they needed to win.
Yeah.
But maybe not the stats. It's nice that they put that in there, where in the conversion guide you can take everything, well, as much as that the conversion guide lets you. But it's not, like I said, the stats are unnecessary for you, because you yet again you have to make a functional D&D character.
Mine was not
To each their own. But it's cool that you
Yeah.
go, oh, I never thought of playing this race and this class and this thing and this background, and I think I'm going to run with it, because you also can, like, Jared was doing this a bit more than I was, like telling the story, like, oh my.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So like because my character basically was a half orc,
Paladin.
artisan, as sovereign at the end. I was secret sovereign, but like, so it was my heritage was half orc, my origin was artisan, which was a tiefling, and they didn't have the tiefling card. I think that might have been expansion, because on the card it was a tiefling making a pot, and my class was paladin.
But as you acquired cards, you kept telling your story, and your story kept expanding.
Yeah, so like when you're on your origin tier, I was building a story. Like, I was playing it as it was a story in my head, and I was trying to make things make sense. And at one point, we were at the destiny phase.
You went hard evil.
I went hard evil, because early on, like mid game, I made like, it was like one of the cards was like packed with the it was
devil.
like, it was like save. It was like save a town or make a pact, or it was like, oh, like banish a fiend or make a pact with the fiend. And the pact with the fiend, because it was on the bottom of the card, it was harder to get, but it was worth way more for me. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a pact with the fiend. And at the very end, it was like save the town from a demon or like help the demon escape. And I was like, I'm helping the demon escape because it works with my pact, because that was my agreement with the fiend. That was like way early on. So like Steve was like, you're really playing a story. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna play a story, because I knew at the end when Steve looked at the villain card and was like, we need strength and wisdom, I was like, I'm not playing this fight. I was all like intelligence and charisma. I was like, I could talk my way out of this fight. But that was the weird part. Like the final boss, I think I understand. I think it was a bit weird. Maybe like I said, I would like to play the original Call to Adventures.
Yeah.
So that I could see how it works there, and then stay tuned for that, because if we'll get it and we'll play the original.
It's fun. It's a fun game. We'll push on the show. It's a fun game, and it's quick.
Oh my!
I can imagine us playing this like 3 or 4 or 5 times
before,
like back to back, and then switching to another game.
Yeah.
Instead of because the setup is quite easy. It's literally just shuffling packs of cards, dealing them out.
Yeah. I would say, obviously they have an age range on this. I would say if you're playing, you could probably play with like a 7 to 8 year old easy. This is like a great family game if you guys if you're a family of gamers and you play D&D 5th edition, and maybe you have someone, maybe one of your kids or mom or dad or your uncle or whoever, brother, sister, wants to run the campaign, and it's like a one shot. You want to make a bunch of like silly characters. I would say do this. This is great for it. Make a bunch of silly characters, play this together as a family unit, and then play those characters in a one shot and see how they play out. And let us know if you actually do that. I would love to hear if people actually do that. And then tell us your stats. I want to hear, because my stats were terrible. But with that, I would say if you have the pocket change and you're a fan of tableau-esque games, and you have people who would be willing to play and are a fan of 5th edition, pick this up. If you don't have disposable income, this is it's like a medium pass. Right? Like if you're in your local friendly game store and you see this on the shelves and you get a chance to play it. Right? That's what I would say. If you're in the store and someone has it, sit down and play.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about this is that obviously this is a standalone version of the original Call to Adventure with like a D&D skin on top of it. You don't need to know about D&D to play this.
No.
You don't need any prior knowledge about D&D 5th edition or anything like that to play this. It literally is just a standalone game. You can play it as is, and then it may be your gateway into D&D.
Yeah. So with that being said, hopefully you found this video entertaining, enjoyable, and do that thing where you give us a click to subscribe and say something in the comments, because YouTube algorithm demands it. They have us. Help. They know. But from all of us here at Nothing Venture, Nothing Games, we love rolling dice, giving advice with a little bit of that New York spice. Say goodnight, Steve.
Later.